Take a breath with me. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Just let your body arrive. Because true leadership does not rush. It restores order quietly, calmly, and naturally. And today isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering something ancient. We're often told that there's a leadership crisis. Myself, as a leadership performance coach, I deal with this every single day, where the leader is burned out. And they're burned out because of chronic forcing. And that is not true leadership. What I see is not that it's a failure of leadership, though. It's a failure of alignment. So when the head is disconnected from the heart, when the actions are disconnected from the truth, well, naturally force is going to replace power. And force always creates resistance. What's interesting is that nature never forces. It harmonizes, which is really interesting to step back and understand the difference between power and force. When we get into this power versus force, this differential, right? Force is always pushing. It demands compliance. We see this with every unnatural law that is out there. But power, it invites coherence. What is coherence? Well, if we talk about heart coherence, it is an actual physiological, it's a psychological state in which the heart, the brain, the nervous system, they function in a harmonious synchronization. It is often characterized by a smooth, cine wave-like pattern, right? We call it, it's a heart rate variability where it indicates increased order and efficiency in the body's systems. And it's a state that's reflected in a balanced autonomic nervous system with enhanced parasympathetic. That's the rest, digest part of the system. That parasympathetic activity allows for healing. It definitely reduces stress and it improves emotional regulation. So that allows for us to come back into harmony, and we can make those executive decisions from a place of alignment, or, as I like to say, true power, our powerhouse. And when we lead from that place, this is what draws in enormous capacity, where forcing pushes, right? There's always this push energy forcing. I think that this is why control eventually collapses. Now, we can see things in a smaller window, right? We're seeing them in smaller lifetime chunks now, so it doesn't feel like we're seeing collapsing, but we indeed are seeing collapsing. We're seeing the inversion, but it is very simply because of the violation of natural law. And natural law does not dominate life. It organizes life. So imagine now operating from that place as opposed to forcing everything, whether that's you as a mother or a father, or a partner in a relationship, or building your own life and your business. Could you imagine where you are using your innate power to create the life, even in your thoughts that come into your mind, or the feelings that you feel, or the actions you take? You're not forcing. Instead, you are naturally being pulled and flowing with something very powerful. So one of the things that happens when leadership relies on control, we see how our thoughts, our mind is overridden, our own, more than just logical, because we can get very logical in our head and we think we're leading from that place. But if the heart has been manipulated because of the logical mind, and we've disconnected from the heart, and we see this so much, the manipulation of the heart, we even do it to ourselves internally. Our actions are naturally reactive. They become reactive because that's the only way then for this natural next flow to organize life through the next process, or the reactionary step. And it is not imposing. So natural law will never impose from the outside, which is very interesting. It's very interesting. It's actually emerging, right? It's the order that emerges. So take anything in nature. It's harder to, so we can look at this beautiful shell, and this did not get created by force. It literally emerged. And look at the order. Now, if we can start looking at nature and seeing how incredible the order that emerges and what the impact it creates, and then we can start to internalize that, we can tap back into something so powerful in ourselves, where we can see how order will naturally emerge from ourselves. And it only happens when we're aligned with truth, when we're aligned within ourselves, with others, with life itself. What's interesting is that it's not submission. And I see this a lot. It is, I want to say sovereignty, but I want to make sure, because it's so overused right now. But sovereignty is just this beautiful word that literally means you are ruling over yourself. Take that further. It's leading over yourself. And this, to me, is where leadership was meant to live. So natural law is not dogma. It is not mind control. It's not emotional manipulation or manipulation in any way. And it's not forced action. I think anytime you start to see those pieces come up, you can immediately understand, and you can feel the incoherency, the dissonance, because natural law is clarity. It is coherence. That's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. It is incredibly simple, and the power of simplicity cannot be understated here when I'm talking about leadership with you today. I want to look at this word leadership, because just like with any words, we know they can be manipulated. And so there's a big movement on ship, meaning maritime, and then it goes off into this maritime law. Well, I want to show you that lead actually came from the root to guide. to walk with, to show, or to share the way. And then the suffix ship, it means a state of being, a state of being. It's not authority, it's not a rank, it's not ruling, and it's not maritime law. It's a lived condition. When I fully understand this word leadership, I owned it for myself and I really started to embody it. And I put Powerhouse together with it because I was trained in neurolinguistic programming, and we always talked about the subconscious mind being the powerhouse. I spent decades working with Joseph Pilates' technology of Pilates, controlology, and controlling my body from my powerhouse and activating that. And then I found it again in Tai Chi and Qigong using the word powerhouse. And so a couple of decades ago, I decided, I just love that word powerhouse. I'm going to use that and put powerhouse and leaders together. So this is what I invite you to rediscover for yourself, is that you have an innate powerhouse within you. And when you can own leadership from this understanding that it was never meant to be a position, right? It's not meant to be a position of authority or, if I remember having a conversation with someone and they said they never looked at themselves as a leader. And yet they were they embodied what true leadership is, based on this clear definition of leading, to guide, to walk with, to show. And she is a profound leader. And there are so many who are true. They just embody that, because leadership, again, was never meant to be a position or this authority. It was literally meant to be an embodied condition, the embodied state of self-governed guidance aligned with natural law. Now that's different, right? Because leadership meant that you could orient yourself. You could govern your own thoughts. You would reign over and regulate your emotions. And then you could choose aligned action, right? And then when coherence was felt, because the heart is the coherent muscle of our existence, right? It's that energy field. And when it's felt, well, others are naturally going to follow. That's, to me, just the beginning of true leadership, is that place where we're fully embodying it for ourselves. When we look at aligned leadership and how can we get there, it is through a clear head. Doesn't necessarily mean empty, but I know that there is such an out of balance of content being that we're trying to go after. I myself have had tens of thousands of books on bookshelves that I've kept as a library, almost like an obsession to get more information, but it didn't make me more clear-headed, right? It was only when I let go of everything and started to embody leading my own thoughts that I was able to finally have and experience clarity. And then the coherence with my heart, a profound shift happened. And then it was so natural for the next right action to be taken. There was no hesitation, no doubt. It was just completely the next right action. And that, especially as a mom, was an incredible gift, because I spent my entire pregnancy and the first year reading every book. I had stacks of books as high as my shoulder that I was determined to read so that I could be the best mom ever. but I was completely disconnected from my heart and wasn't sure what right action to take at all. In fact, I was more confused because of all the data. And so that is not leadership. That is not what, and to me, a mother and a father are completely the embodiment of what genuine powerhouse leaders can be. And the potential is so incredible. So I think that what I really want to get across is that power is not this dirty word. It is not this evil, slave society creating. To me, government is not power at all. That's not power. That's literally where they are doing something from force. It's the exact antithesis to power. Power flows where alignment exists. And that is so profound and so important. I think that if we can understand that piece, and we can see that with a clear head, we see what things are. There is no distortion available because we can see what is. And we're not lost in all the rumors or the make-believe or the perceptions, right? Now, perception and perspective are similar. They're not synonyms. They're similar. And I want to talk about this a little bit because we can get lost sometimes. From a clear head, if you, especially from this leadership energy, the leader holds the long view. They're holding the vision and they lead without distortion. What we see now with distortion is mind control. And there's the whole gamut. Everything that Mark Passio teaches is all about uncovering this distortion, which is the mind control. And how to correct that is through truth with clear perspective. Now, perspective is important to go along with truth because, for example, my truth is aligned with Mark's, but his perspective is different than my perspective as a mom to sons, or as a mom who homeschools, or a healer, my work to heal and to do things from a place of goodness and kindness and love. That's my perspective I'm coming from. And that doesn't make Mark's truth any less or my truth any less, but it is my perspective. And that is a key piece that I think that has been overlooked with regards to others' work in our freedom under natural law and what we're all trying to do. Because at the end of the day, are we all not trying to come back to natural law and understand this and embody it? I think that we all are. And so as we look at this from the coherent heart, we are no longer in this topsy-turvy with emotions where the emotions just destroy us, but instead we are able to regulate emotions when they come in, and we can understand them as an indicator or a messenger. And we don't need to kill the messenger or numb the messenger out or do some other substitution or sublimation for that emotion. Instead, because we're in such a state of coherency, we are able to trust and naturally create a sense of safety. And we don't get stuck in the reptilian brain where that is where much of the distortion comes from. That's what the whole emotional manipulation is, because they get you in fear. And so immediately you are out of coherency with the heart. Fear is the place they want you to be because that completely is controllable. When you're in fear, the reptile brain comes in, and what do we know about animals? They're predictable. And so your behavior becomes predictable. And guess what? We're no longer leading ourselves. So we're seeing this now as, hopefully you're seeing this come full circle with this understanding of these pieces, that your heart, I love this, that your heart is the great regulator. And it is such a gift, but so many have disconnected from it and are no longer leading from that aligned place. But this is the work. And it is gentle work, gentle. We don't need a sledgehammer hit over the head. We don't need horns blown in our faces. It is so gentle and quite lovely. The next piece is right action, and it naturally flows from the clear mind and the coherent heart. You become more responsive as a leader, and you reinforce what works and you release what does not. Of course, the distortion of that is forced action. And you can just take a moment and look at your own life. How many actions are you doing based on force? Even you trying to force yourself to do something, right? But the correction is coming back into alignment and then timing. This is a key lesson that I had to learn, is that there's a right time for things. And a lot of us will force timing, like try to make it happen. And that again is forcing. So I hope that you understand here really where I think leadership went off the rails is that it over time became externalized, right? Outside authority replaced embodiment, right? Man's law replaced natural law. Leadership then became domination, dominating. And then as a result of someone dominating, then there's someone who is dominated. Then we have obedience, right? The slave society obeys. And as a result of them, if we go into obedience, what has happened is obedience replaced our own inner guidance. And then slowly over time, people forgot, right? They forgot that they were designed to lead themselves. I think that is the true loss of freedom right there. So under natural law, as I see it, leadership is crucial. It's the most important piece because this is where, right, leadership lives in alignment. It's the clear head. It's grounded in truth. It's grounded in a clear vision. The coherent heart. It's regulated. It's present. It's powerful. It's not avoiding or neglecting any of the emotions. It's being able to see them and be powerful, but it's regulated. So key. And then the right action, of course, is just natural. It's responsive, right? It's not reactive. But when one is out of alignment, force enters in any one of those places, right? Martyrdom, even. This is what happened to me a lot. I would go into servitude, and then it would become martyrdom, right? Where you give up all your own self to control another, which is not leadership. I'm going to say that again. I observed this in myself so much where it inverted, and leadership then went into servitude, went into martyrdom, where you give up all your own self to control another. Now, this is a big concept, but when you get this and you can unravel this for yourself and take personal responsibility for the moments where you gave up all your own self from that clear, coherent head where you were grounded in truth and vision, your coherent heart, you were regulated, you were present, you were powerful. And then your right actions, you were responsive, you were not reactive. Then when there's out of alignment, the force enters, and then it's inverted. So it's like this dwindling spiral downward where we now are internalizing and having then to manipulate to outpour and justify controlling another, again, which is not leadership, right? And the only place where true leadership happens is all three are aligning, and then power naturally flows. So that's a pretty big concept, but the biggest place I see this is with mothers, often with fathers, but I can't speak for fathers. I can only speak as a mother, and matriarchal wisdom. And we can see so many places because of this duality of this universe that we live in. But if we can transcend and we can observe both sides of this duality, then we can shift and not swing to the other side of the pendulum here, especially with this responsibility for uh, our youth and those that we bring into the world. Because I think anyone who is a mother or father can understand this instinctively. I would say, especially those raising sons. My sons are now late teens. My oldest just turned 20. Force absolutely creates rebellion, but coherence creates strength. And it is such a light touch. It is so beautiful. It what bubbles up in me is just pure bliss and joy. And I want that so much for you. If you have the gift to be a leader of another in your life, and you are willing to do what it takes to lead yourself first from this place. And then if you're in a place and you can start understanding that, especially with matriarchal energy, that leadership was never about dominance. It was about holding life, holding a vision, and holding life in view. And that wisdom is what I believe is rising again, not to overthrow, but to restore balance. It's such an incredible gift. I remember my newborn and so many nights where I wouldn't have slept. And I kept this coherency about me where I held life in view. And I saw him at 18 and 20 and what I wanted to put forth. So all of my actions were aligned with that. And I was so clear in my head about that. And I'm grateful, so grateful for the higher power, for the natural law that was living and flowing and that I was allowing to flow with me, to bring and invite in incredible power. And I invite you to allow that to integrate within you, because it is part of how we are going to transmute and transform the world. Again, not by overthrowing something or fighting against. It has to be where we are rising above this and leading from a place of incredible clarity, because that is what will replace confusion. Power will replace force. Your calm will replace urgency. And trust will replace fear. And when we can fully trust ourselves and each other, that is when there will be peace on earth. So I invite you in closing to, just come back to your body for a moment, placing a hand over your heart, just one on your body, and ask yourself, where have I been forcing? Where have I been forcing instead of aligning? So take a breath and let coherence return, because your breath is your power. Remember that leadership is not something it's not something given to us. It's actually something remembered within us. And we lead ourselves and our thoughts and our hearts and our actions. And when we lead ourselves first, we restore natural law. And from there, true power ignites. So I thank you for remembering with me. Peace and blessings.